I have 4:15. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Sam Martin, Rick Morgan's here, and Bob Freeman is on vacation. We open with an opportunity for public input before we start into the business folder. Anybody have anything to start with? Okay, if not. First thing we have in the red folder is the minutes of the Selectmen's meeting, which occurred on Monday, August 21st. I make a motion we accept them as printed.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Did you say aye?
Aye.
Okay.
I did.
Just double checking, because there's only two of us.
I'm sorry.
I want to make sure it's legal.
Let's see.
We have the minutes of the Selectmen's workshop, which occurred on August 21st. I make a motion we accept them as printed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Better. And somehow we missed it last week, but we did notice it, and this is the minutes of the Selectmen's work session and non-public session, which occurred on Monday, August 14th. I make a motion we accept them as printed.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We have the check voucher totals. Payroll for week ending 8/26 was $43,546.57. Accounts payable for week ending 8/19 were $5,409.12, for a total disbursed of $48,955.69. We also had accounts payable on the water department in the amount of $4,097.49. I make a motion we sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
These are the batch totals. We do review each and every bill as it comes in. Actually, it starts with the department head. They sign off on it, assign which account within their budget it comes from, and then it comes to us where we review it before it goes to a finance department where they create these batch totals. We have a payroll reimbursement request. This is from the water department to the town in the amount of $2,984.91. I make a motion we sign it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a contract for use of facilities. We wanted to borrow 5 tables and 3 chairs. It's been okayed by Craig. They've paid a deposit. I make a motion we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a contract for use of facilities for a birthday party here in the gym. Schedule's been okayed by Craig. I make a motion we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a letter from the State of New Hampshire Department of Natural and Cultural Resources notifying us that they plan to harvest timber from 40 acres of the Little Pine River State Forest in the town of Ossipee. There's a map showing the parcel that they intend to log. They anticipate offering this sale for public bidding in the fall of 2017, which I'd expect at any time. We'll be notified of the timber volume sold, as well as a successful bidder who will be responsible for payment of the timber tax. The harvest will not require transportation of forest products over town roads, as access will be off Route 16. Anybody wants a copy of it, it's here in the folder. We received a letter of support from the Town of Wakefield Board of Selectmen. This is regarding our efforts to have work done at the intersection of 28 and 171. It's to Chairman Morgan, Selectman Freeman, and Selectwoman Martin. The Wakefield Board of Selectmen is aware of the potentially hazardous conditions existing at the referenced intersection as it is currently laid out. In that regard, this board encourages the town of Ossipee to solicit the New Hampshire DOT to consider all options available to mitigate those hazards and would support the DOT's efforts to redesign the intersection in order to effect the safest possible traffic pattern for all motorists. We appreciate that letter, and we need to make sure that that gets passed on to DOT. Ironically, two of the fatalities that I can think of in this intersection involve residents of the town of Wakefield, so I'm glad that they did choose to write that letter. We have an abutter notification for a wetlands permit. It's somewhat boilerplate. I'm not exactly sure. It's someplace on 905 Route 16 that there's going to be a wetlands permit filed and that it abuts our property. Will be notified when the permit is actually filed. We have two requests for permission for snowmobile access. From the Ossipee Valley Snowmobile Club. The first is for their continued use of Arches Pond Road. We have the options of making the agreement indefinite, 1 year or 5 years. In the past, we have only done it on a year-to-year basis, and I quite frankly think that's probably the way we ought to continue. Any thoughts? And the second is from the Ossipee Valley Snow Machine Club to use the trail from Ossipee Lake through Constitution Park. Again, these are areas that they've been using right along. I make a motion that we approve them for a one-year approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We have a copy of the Highway Department work log, which is here in the folder and available if anybody would like to look at it. We have a memo from Brad regarding striping. It says, I reached out to 3 companies for quotes for approximately 122,000 linear feet of double yellow line striping for town roads. They were L&D Striping, Industrial Traffic Lines Incorporated, and Sir Lines a Lot. L&D didn't respond again this year. The other 2 quotes are attached. Industrial Traffic Lines bid 8.2 cents per foot for a total of $10,004, and Sir Lines a Lot bid 10 cents per foot for a total of $12,200. Brad's recommendation is to award the contract to Industrial Traffic Lines, Inc. They were the ones who did it last year as well.
They've done it the past 3 years, I believe. We've had that
No
here.
issues with them?
Nope, they've been doing a good job.
I make a motion that we approve Brad's purchase of $12,200, correction, $10,004 from Industrial Traffic Lines.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We have a yearly letter that we get from the University of New Hampshire regarding the Lord Scholarship Fund, and it's got copies of the letters that went to the different directors of guidance from the UNH, and it lays out who got scholarships, what is currently in the fund, how much they dispersed in scholarships. It's all here if anybody would like to look at it. We have a copy of the consent calendar agenda from the Executive Council, which is again here if anybody would like to look at it. And we still have on the table, but I understand Connie's not here, with the issue of the Morse pit, but they're going to decide that, I guess, at their next meeting.
Right,
and
we
then
need
get
to
back
go,
to us.
some of us need to go.
So we can continue to table that. Okay. Okay, old business, FEMA correspondence. Ellen, did you get anything back on that?
I have not heard that.
Can we reach out to them again to try to clarify why we were getting that? Most of it we just talked about, the water and sewer department rules.
I have them, I just haven't finished them. Ellen finished, I haven't finished.
All right,
I'm getting there.
any other old business?
What's happening with the fish hatchery? We're going out to bid for that.
No, we need to get back, we need to set up a second meeting with them. I don't think we were ready to go out to bid.
For the roof and,
I don't think we hadn't decided yet. We need to meet, we need to set up a second meeting with them, to go over the line, remember we were still
Yeah, we
trying
were
to
gonna
decide
be-
who was responsible for what.
okay.
Okay. Brad, any other old business?
Not say old or new, but just let you guys know, we did all the chip sealing. The fiber mat chip sealing went down on Wednesday and Thursday last week. Bill and I went out and we watched a lot of the process of that. It looks like it's, very interesting process and it really should work, so we're very pleased with it and everything. They did the sweeping. They sweep up the loose stone on it. They started to do it Friday, the sweeper broke down, they came back today to finish it, and then they'll come back in about a week's time and go over it again with the sweeper. We are having quite a bit of dust on it right now, but we're hoping to one of these days get a good shower or something, we'll rinse some of the residual dust off the stone that's there, so. The paving they're finishing up Chickville Road today. They did the paving down in Granite. Circuit Road Hill is done. The further end of Granite Road is done down by Fogs Ridge. We're holding off on doing the shim on Granite Road from basically where we left off with the grinding portion of it to the four corners because there's a logging operation going on down there. And they got about another 2 weeks in there, so we talked to Frank Carroll there. He said he'd rather come back and do it afterwards rather than chew up the new pavement there and stuff, so.
This will be more.
Yep.
Okay. Under new business, we have the Honorable Joe Hannon.
Hello, thank you for having me today.
Absolutely.
My name is Joe Hannon. I'm a former state representative from Lee, New Hampshire. I was in the House the session prior to this, and I was also the person responsible for putting in the bill for syringe exchange programs in New Hampshire. I became the chairman of the Commission to Study Hypodermic Needles and Syringes in New Hampshire, and we had a very large group of over 20 people from law enforcement, public health, infectious disease department, lots of different people. All the experts came, doctors, and people in recovery. Since I wasn't there this year, I had a couple senators put in the bill again for me because it didn't pass the Senate last time by just a little bit, we thought. But it did pass this year with overwhelming numbers. The House passed it on the consent calendar, which means it was unanimous, and the Senate passed it with all but 2 votes. So that's a pretty strong show of support. And one of the biggest reasons I did that was because everyone was concerned about the opioid crisis in New Hampshire, and all of us are. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit also after I talk about this. But one thing that wasn't being done was there was very little that was being done to deal with the harms that were caused by injection drug use specifically. Most of what people did was say, well, we just want to not do it. Kind of like in the 80s when they said, don't do drugs. And that didn't really work out very well. People didn't listen. Now, that's not saying we want to condone it, but I'm trying to say that we have to accept the reality that even if it's against the law, people are still doing it, obviously. So what do? We want to help reduce the harm for the people that are doing it and the people that are associated with them. And a lot of people told me, well, I don't really care. If some drug user gets sick with HIV or hepatitis C, that's their problem, and if it's dangerous, maybe they won't do it. Well, they are doing it. And we know that in New Hampshire and across the country, people that use IV drugs illegally, they have a chance of getting hepatitis C of between 60 and almost 80%. After they've been using for a year, that number gets very high. There was the CEO from a large hospital in Manchester was saying that about 60, I think it was over 60% of the people that he had in his patients that were IV drug users had hepatitis C. Hepatitis C is a pretty dangerous disease. It's very, very contagious. So if someone is using a needle and they leave it somewhere or someone finds it, if you get stuck with that needle, that's more dangerous than getting stuck with a needle that had HIV in it. It's much, much more contagious. So, fortunately in New Hampshire, we don't have a big problem with HIV yet, or hepatitis as far as an epidemic. And one of the reasons we don't know that we have a problem with hepatitis C is until recently it was not reportable as a communicable disease. So if someone has HIV, they have to report it. Until recently, the state didn't have to report hepatitis infections. So they're doing that now, so we'll slowly start to see how many people really are infected. Talking to the doctors in the state and infectious disease people that I know, I'm a retired doctor myself, we know that those numbers are extremely high. Now, if someone finds a needle in the street, the chances of that having something like that, hepatitis C or some other communicable disease, is extremely high. And one of the reasons why people reuse, and that's another thing I want to mention, people that are using IV drugs, they frequently reuse needles to the point where you wouldn't believe they were actually sticking it in their arm. If you look at a microscope of what they look like, after one use, there's a little barb, a few more, it's even worse. They'll reuse them many, many times, and it becomes extremely dangerous. One of the big problems was there was no access for clean ones. Now, the Centers for Disease Control and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services both recommend that even for people using illegal drugs, they should use one clean needle for every time they inject. Now, New Hampshire passed a law about 17 years ago that knew that this was a problem. It was going on all over the country. Some states and cities, places like New York and some other places, knew that they had this serious problem with HIV. So they put these programs into place, syringe exchange programs, where people would take their used syringes and they would give them a clean one. That was something that dropped the HIV rates among drug users and the general population in New York City by an extremely high percentage. I mean, most places it dropped by more than 50%. Some places in Europe and parts of this country, it's dropped much lower than that even. So we know that it saves people from getting sick. Some people said, well, like I said before, they don't care if they get sick. It's not just the people that are using the drugs that are getting sick. If some kid steps out on the beach, like in Hampton we heard about, or if someone has children in the house, those children are more likely to get sick. The number one reason that children can contract HIV or hepatitis C is through an IV drug using parents' contact or with something in their possession. So we can eliminate the number one cause by keeping those people healthier and making sure that there are clean needles for each use. Now, I'm not coming in here expecting that the town of Ossipee is going to put a bunch of clean, free needles at the front door. This is something that's very new in New Hampshire. It's been done all over the world. Many parts of the country already have programs like this. And it's a very small town, much like mine. I live in Lee, so we only have about 4,000 some people. I know it's hard to have a full-size program in a town like that. But there may be the opportunity for regional programs or access points where people can get these services. Now, we know that from all the research they've done, and this has been studied to death pretty much, not to use that word, but it's been studied to the point where we know that it does not increase IV drug use. So if they have these programs, you think, okay, we're making it easier for them. It's making it easier for them to not get sick and not get other people sick. They're already using drugs. So, the fact that they have a clean needle just means they are doing it safer and they're less likely to get sick and get other people sick. We know the studies show that they don't cause new users to start. We don't see increased usage. And we've actually had studies that have shown that usage can decrease and people are 5 times more likely in one study to get into a treatment program if they're in contact with people who are doing this type of program. So if someone is going in a non-judgmental kind of way and they come in on a regular basis, say, here's my dirty ones, they give you new clean ones. They don't just say, here's some needles. We also talk to them about safe practices. How do you not get infections? That's something that is very costly to the state of New Hampshire. Our insurance pool, if you have private insurance or you pay taxes, this affects you. If someone gets a little infection, it might not seem like a big deal, but if someone gets a bad infection, hepatitis, the cost of treating hepatitis C is between $80,000 and $150,000 a year for one course of treatment. And if they continue using, they can get sick again the next year. In New Hampshire, I know someone who's in the Medicaid program, they they didn't pay because the state paid for it, but they saw the bill. It was $90,000 to treat their hepatitis C. That's taxpayers. So some people don't like the idea of paying for needles because they think it's enabling people to do this, but we know that it doesn't increase drug use, it doesn't increase crime, and it causes less chance of disease, and it saves the state a lot of money, and it also helps people get into treatment. So these are all positives. It's almost counterintuitive if you think about it. The first time I heard about Narcan, I was involved with that bill also. I wasn't a big fan of it, honestly, and people are very shocked to hear that, because back when I was in training, if we gave something to somebody to reverse an overdose, they wouldn't always, we gave a large amount of it and they'd wake up sometimes a little combative, and usually we saved their life, but I didn't want to put that into the hands of just anybody who wasn't trained to do it. And then my wife, who's an emergency room doctor, said, oh, no, it's changed a lot. We use a smaller dosage. We just give them enough to keep them breathing. We don't give them this huge dose that wakes them right up. Because people that are using IV drugs like heroin and other opiates, they don't want to get their high taken away. They don't like it. It's not very pleasant. It's painful. It hurts. Imagine the worst illness, the worst flu you've ever had, the worst sickness you've ever had. It's painful. So it's not a pleasant experience. So now the naloxone, Narcan, the reversal agent, it saves lives. We know that in the United States, the World Health Organization has estimated that it can save over 10,000 lives easily if we start getting this to people more frequently. We have, back to syringe exchange. So we have the cost to the taxpayers, to the insurance payers. If you have private insurance, your rates go up when people have to pay for these things. If someone gets an infection in their blood, it can go to their heart and they can get something called endocarditis. They might have to get a valve replaced. We're talking $100,000, $200,000 plus to fix that. That's what you're paying for through your pooled insurances and taxes. So we also know that aside from getting shot in the line of duty, police officers that's their number one fear. The second biggest fear is usually getting stuck with a syringe when they're patting someone down or they're going somewhere, frisking someone. That's one of the biggest fears they have. We know that the needle stick injury incidences in Connecticut, they did a study, were reduced by 2/3 amongst law enforcement officers after they had syringe exchange programs instituted, because it wasn't a felony anymore for someone to carry a used syringe. Now, the bill didn't legalize heroin in New Hampshire, so some people say, oh, it legalizes a small amount of drugs. All it did was the bill that was signed into law in this past June allowed trace amounts, non-usable amounts that were stuck in a needle. That was no longer a felony offense, which was 7 years in prison. So if a police officer found someone with one used syringe, they could put that person in jail for 7 years. So if you're using IV drugs, the chances of you holding on to that, if you see a police officer, someone's coming, you're going to throw that. You don't care if it's in the park or the playground, you're going to get rid of it. So we didn't want to make it so incentivized for people to throw away their needles when they were worried about getting arrested and doing jail time. So if you're a member of a program, there is no charge if you have a residual amount. Now, if they find a bag of heroin or other drugs on you, they can still arrest you. They can technically still arrest you for a used syringe, but if you go to court, you could use an affirmative defense. Say, look, I'm part of a program, you have to let me go. And the judge will probably do that. If someone is not a participant in a program and they're buying needles off the street, just using them off the street and they're not exchanging them on a regular basis, they can still get arrested. They can still be arrested, but it's now a misdemeanor. So they're not going to go to jail for 7 years. Now, does that mean they're going to be less likely to throw them away if they're not in a program? Possibly, but the part of this is we have to educate people. We have to say, look, you don't have to throw them away. You have to be safe with them. Now, they know that people that use IV drugs can be responsible more than people think about getting rid of used syringes and being careful with them. Now, the programs in other parts of the country and around the world have been extremely effective. We know that the numbers of diseases go down, the costs of associated diseases go down, people get into treatment, and you will see hopefully less on the streets. Now, I know that there have been some found in the town here. The question you're probably going to want to know is, and I've heard, is what do you do about those now? If you don't have a program, how do you get rid of those needles? I can only tell you what they've done anecdotally in other towns, and what I've done as part of a recovery community organization. I'm the chairman of the advisory board for SOS Recovery Community Organization. They're peer coaches. Many have been in recovery from addiction themselves, and they help get other people into treatment. They might help them as a coach to get them the skills and to get back into the community, that kind of thing. We actually go around, we've been going out the last couple weeks. We've made a few efforts to go into the Rochester area where one of the centers is, and we're actually going into the places where there's homeless camps and shelters and looking for people to try and help. So we're not going to go in there and be judgmental. We're saying, look, we're here to help you. What do you need? We're not trying to drag them out of the woods. That's the police job usually, but we're just trying to say, look, we're someone you can talk to if you need help. There are a lot of recovery community organizations in the state, and they're growing, and that is a very economical and effective way of reaching people. The big problem with this epidemic that we have is people don't want to talk about it, and if they do, they want to vilify the people that are doing these drugs. Now, I don't want to say we want to normalize the behavior. We don't want to say, yeah, go ahead and do whatever you want. We want to reduce the harms of that behavior, and we want to say, we're here to help you. In the Seacoast area where I am, there are several police departments that have a program, Community Access to Recovery. It's very similar to the Safe Station program in Manchester, where the fire department is available. If anybody has a problem at any time, they can show up to any fire department in Manchester and say, I have a problem, I need help. And no questions asked, they'll take whatever drugs they have, get rid of them, and take that person to a recovery community center or some treatment coach or someone to help them. They've had well over 1,000 people since last May, the year last, and it's been an extremely effective program. The police have also tried to do that in the Seacoast and southern Maine. There's several areas that have done that, where they say no questions asked. If you have a problem, come on in. Surprise, many people that use illegal drugs are not as likely to show up to the police department as they are to the fire department. Not surprised at all, but it's something that it helps the police department be another tool in that process. They do arrest people, they do have to do their job.
We're already part of it here.
Yeah, oh, you already did it.
We are.
Fantastic, great. Then you just saved yourself 3 minutes of me babbling.
Okay.
Thanks. So these are some options. The other thing they do in Manchester to get rid of needles if people find them on the street, before I did the original bill, I saw a map, and there were over 500 locations on a map of Manchester area where they found syringes on sidewalks, playgrounds, schools, and I showed it to people, and it was extremely shocking thing to see. It hasn't completely gone away. They don't have any syringe service programs in Manchester yet. We only have 2 in the state, and they're very new in the last couple of weeks, and they're very low key right now. We're still building up and trying to get them more off the ground. There's one in the Dartmouth area, and we just started one in the Seacoast area. What Manchester does is if someone finds a syringe, they tell people, don't touch it, don't pick it up, call the police department. The police department will then notify fire and rescue, and they will send out an EMT or a paramedic, and if they're not doing another emergency call, they'll send them out and they'll get it as soon as they can. And that way it gets taken care of. They know exactly where it is, and they can get rid of it. It's been a pretty effective way of doing it. You're less likely to have people in town accidentally touching something that might get them injured or sick. But it is going to take some effort on the part of the local fire department and paramedics and the police department. It's going to have to be responsive to this. Now, they don't have the police officers pick them up, but they do have someone who knows how to handle hazardous wastes. Like the paramedics are very used to dealing with syringes, so they know what to do. That's something I think would be very effective somewhere like this in any small town. Last, I want to talk about, we've started a New Hampshire Harm Reduction Coalition. And you might say, what is harm reduction? Harm reduction is keeping, there's the reality that this is going on. We know people are using these IV drugs and other harmful substances, but we're going to try and reduce the harm of that happening. So we have syringe programs, we have Narcan to help reduce overdose deaths. That's harm reduction. I rode my motorcycle here today. I wore a helmet. That's harm reduction. If If something happens, I'm less likely to get injured. So we know that things are going to happen. We know I'm going to ride my bike. We know that kids are going to ride their bicycles or do something dangerous. But we want to encourage and educate people to do things that will reduce the risks and the harm. So if we can make those things available to people, we can do a lot of good and save a lot of lives. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has, and thank you very much for having me here today.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ed?
My concern is, does the town now have a workable policy that the public understands when they find needles? Because just recently I am receiving emails and phone calls saying that I was walking and I found needles.
Yep.
So there's still,
Well, I hope there should not be any mystery. What kind of brought this issue to light was when our police department received a call about needles on the road, and because of a whole bunch of circumstances outside of their control, they did not get there immediately to address it. But that's the exception, not the rule. Our police officers do in fact respond every time that somebody says they found a needle, and they do in fact collect them. I know what you said about the EMTs, but police officers are pretty used to handling dangerous things too. So they have the collection containers, and they do routinely collect them. So anybody in Ossipee, and this is probably even more important than the issue of the Hep C, not to minimize that at all, but with not only fentanyl, but now carfentanil, those needles can kill you literally instantly, depending on what's in them. So anybody that finds any needles, sees any needles, do not touch it. Call and let people who are trained to collect those items collect them, but don't touch them.
Can I add something? The New Hampshire Harm Reduction Coalition is also doing training programs for naloxone. We're going to develop training programs to actually teach the local law enforcement, road crews, whoever wants to do it in a municipality to clean up hazardous waste. We're going to try and develop things to teach them, and I will keep you apprised of that. We're going to have a program on September 22nd in Concord. I have a few flyers for you. You can make copies, hand them out. I'll give you a digital copy also to post if you'd like. Mark McKinsey and Kevin Irwin are two experts in the field. They've got over 40 years combined experience. I know Kevin personally. He's been all over the world doing this. They're going to be talking about how to implement programs for anyone that's interested in getting them started. So if you know the local public health department is interested, we've sent invites out to just about everybody we can think of. But if you can think of anyone else who'd like to go, I can give you those.
Okay.
And we also are going to be doing training for naloxone and Narcan training to have, so if there is an overdose and if you find someone, you never know. It could be a child who gets into their parents' medicine cabinet and finds a prescription drug, and that's a lot of overdoses in this country. If someone has naloxone and they're trained to use it, it's extremely simple. It'll take about 3 to 5 minutes to train someone how to use it, and we're going to be doing those trainings also. There are some police departments that are carrying it. They're not all advertising it because they don't. Not all people think that it's their job, but it does save lives, and it can save their life because if your local law enforcement officer happens to accidentally touch something and get exposed to fentanyl or carfentanil, they need it to save their life. So if for no other reason, I think it's important that they should learn how to do it and carry it. So if there's any questions, there's a phone number on that flyer you can call and ask about training, and we're going to develop more, and I will let you know when we have more.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, by way of announcement, there will be no meeting next week, which is 9/4. That's Labor Day. And with that, open the meeting to public input. Sir.
Want to go back to my neighbor again. The dogs have gone to the point of being a nuisance and a menace. They attacked somebody Wednesday night, attacked her and her dog. So I think it's time for those 2 dogs for her to go. I really do.
First of all, do you know if it was reported to the dog officer or to the police department?
Both, the sheriff. Okay. Number one, my wife loved to walk the dog. She's petrified. Okay. Lord knows what she'd do if it attacked her, because she does carry firearms. I don't know what the hell she'd do. I have no idea. And I got a hunch what I do. It attacked me. Okay? And it's still barking at night, which is fine, great, whatever. Okay? But somebody's got to explain to her, severely explain to her, that dog's got to be restrained on her property at all times. Leashed, caged, fenced, somehow. She's letting her run loose, the chickens are coming in my yard now, her dog was twice in my yard, and I'm fed up with it.
Have you complained to the dog office?
Many times, not about this, but many times before.
All right. Many times before, he won't possibly know that you still have a problem. All I'm asking you, no, all I'm asking you is if you haven't reported it, either you can or we will, but you can't fault somebody for not doing something if they don't know about it.
Well, now you know.
Okay, so you would like us to pass that information on to the dog officer? Will you have the dog officer contact this gentleman and then get the particulars, please?
She's got to keep restraint. She has to.
That's not, quite frankly, an issue for us. I get it, we'll pass that information on.
It is for our neighborhood. Because I don't want anything to happen to dogs, I really don't. But I fear something's going to.
Okay. Anything else under public input? Ed?
I didn't hear a clear answer to what I brought up was, do we have a clear policy that the public is able to access step by step? I don't see anything on the website unless I missed it.
Okay.
Newspapers, we need to at least, if you have something that works, we need to make sure the public knows that.
Sure.
Like
Okay.
if somebody calls me, I have to tell them what you have set up, and I don't know what that is.
Okay. And I don't have a problem in the world, Ellen, you get that reduced to writing so that we can advertise it, but it is, again, I will repeat, do not touch them. Contact the police department and they will be addressed, whether it is by them or if they can't be there immediately, then they would call for an EMT or somebody else to pick them up. But let's get that reduced to writing so that we can advertise that better than what we have. Anything else? Well,
It's actually today.
how was it?
We found one down in the corner of 16 and 16B, which hopefully I might dig up tomorrow.
Yeah.
He did Main Street, Huckins Street, and 16B, and everything was good except for right there. He's gonna come back Thursday, and we're gonna do like Pine River Road and Arrowhead to see if we can find anything there. But we did find one, he figured 15 to 20 gallons a minute just by listening to it, and that's a lot.
A lot of water.
That's a lot of water.
So on the water, we dragged it up day after day.
Yeah.
Month after month.
Yeah.
How much of a percentage of the system do you think that we're gonna do this time with the leak detection?
About half.
About half? And when will we do the other half?
I
Is
can
that-
try to get Grand Stadium to help me do some of it
Yeah.
soon, within this fall.
Okay.
I can get quite a bit of it done, I think.
Good. I do want to just touch briefly, and I could have done this under old business, talking about the acquisition of the town beach that we're working on. That is still obviously very much in progress. There was one correction I wanted to make to the article that was in the Independent, when it mentioned that one of the agreed upon stipulations in the purchase and sales was that we would never go up on the rents of the people who were camping there. That wasn't in there. There is an agreement in the purchase and sales that for those campers who are allowed to stay, we will not go up on their rate for 3 years. So just by purposes of clarification. The other thing, real briefly, I am getting an awful lot of really positive feedback on the concept of having a beach. I am, in fact, having some people who are saying they want the beach, but they don't want to be in the campground business. And that is a completely understandable position. I want everybody to know that nothing is scribed in stone. Rick Morgan has his ideas, but I am only one of 4,400 people who live in this town. So please give us your comments. There will be plenty of opportunity. There'll be a budget process, there'll be public hearings, there'll be the town meeting itself. If anybody wants to submit comments to us in writing, please do so. We are listening. Though much of what we get out of those public hearings is going to dictate how we go forward with this. So nothing is scribed in stone, and please let us know your thoughts. Be a part of the process. We do have, anybody have anything else? Sir? No?
One more quick thing about neighbor. There's already had 2 fires there caused by heat lamps, okay? Now she's living in a mobile, And I'm willing to bet she's raising chicks in there. She's probably keeping them warm with a heat lamp. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 1 year that mobile home burns down too. So I just thought I'd let you know.
It's all well and good you let us know, but it's not illegal for somebody to raise chickens, and it's not illegal for them to use a heat lamp. I don't know what you expect we are going to do for you about that.
Maybe somebody can suggest, I'm not going on a property. No way am I going on a property.
No, I
don't know
wouldn't-
if she
I
can
wouldn't
go on
suggest
bird
you
on
would.
it. No way.
And I don't quite frankly think we're gonna go on her property and tell her that she can or can't raise chickens.
But you think she has some common sense, really?
If that were a requirement, there'd be a lot of people, there would be a lot of trouble. We do have a request for a non-public with our tax collector, and that is under RSA 91A32C. It's to meet with our tax collector and a taxpayer. I poll the board, Sam? Yes. And Rick Morgan, yes. We will be back shortly. Okay, I move to reopen the public session. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I'm going to move to seal with the minutes of the non-public we just had on the basis that it was potentially detrimental to a person's reputation. It was meeting with the taxpayer trying to arrange for the buyback of property which the town has taken for back taxes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else to come before the meeting? Ed, do you have anything?
I could probably talk for a few hours. I
Oh,
just
no,
wanna
don't
make-
do that.
Okay.
That looks good.
No, I'm serious. Do you have anything you'd like to bring up to
Actually,
us?
I do. What I would like to also do, and I'm sure the area reps would like to do it also, I don't think it's necessary at this point maybe to have us all sign a letter to DOT. I think it's clear that we all support that, but if it would help, you can add a few lines on that. I'm sure we could
Okay.
all sign it, just so you know.
I would like to do that. I think that, again, my years of experience with DOT, they like the paper trail. I think that paper is important. I'm thankful. I didn't know that Wakefield was gonna do that. I'm thankful they provided that, because I think all of that helps. So, yes, Ellen, if you wanna comprise that letter and put the signature lines in, and if you wouldn't mind collecting those signatures for us, we'd appreciate it.
Well, there's myself, Lino Avalani, Jeff Bradley, Joe Kenny, well, Bill Nelson.
Yeah.
I think that's it, so it's five. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation about the issue. I think like every 2 weeks we need to keep bringing this up so people, just keep talking about it, because with the older population in town probably is still, their head isn't really around what addiction is and why people do what they do, and I think that we have to keep talking about
The
it.
sad part of it is, the longer it sticks around, the more families are going to be touched by it, and the more they are going to understand. And for those who don't currently, I say count your blessings,
Yeah.
because it is decimating. And
Back to the roundabout, is there a way, or do you think you need any more letters to go out? Because Brookfield obviously has been watching the meetings, they're
Yeah,
aware of it.
I don't know that we do, but again, there are regional, I'm quite sure there are people from Brookfield that travel through that intersection, going up to the nursing home and to the court facilities and administration buildings, so I think the more the merrier. If it's one thing I've learned is the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you need to continuously squeak. I'm not completely a fan that it's gonna be now 2 more years to do a roundabout. I get it, and I know it doesn't happen overnight, and I wanna do as many of the steps as we can to mitigate, but as I said at that meeting, if you look at past history as a judge, there's gonna be another 15 or 20 serious motor vehicle accidents in that intersection before the roundabout is finally built. And statistically, it's very likely that somebody's gonna die.
Did we get the sign up? Did you get the sign up?
It's being ordered.
The sign's been ordered, so we will get it up as soon as it is available.
What I also noticed is coming out of the county complex going into the intersection, I did notice you had installed there's a stop ahead sign. I don't remember that ever being there. And the other stop signs that are installed, it does catch your eye, especially at night with the reflectors, so.
And we're trying everything we can to
Temporarily.
mitigate as best we can, but statistically, it's been a very bad intersection for a lot of years. It's got some push this last 2 or 3 or 4 years, but I've been complaining about that intersection for more than 20 years, 25 years, pretty close, so.
Well, let's hope we're doing a little better this time, so.
We certainly seem to be making some progress, which is always, you know, I get it that things work slowly, and the larger the government entity, the slower it works. I get that. But it's also immensely frustrating, as I'm sure you can attest to being down in Concord. Nothing down there moves, never mind fast. It seems at times that everything moves at such a snail's pace.
Well, you could-
It's
It was
frustrating.
kind of designed to do that because you don't want knee-jerk reactions to all kinds of things like what happened in Spain, where, you know, you had the terrorist attack and all of a sudden their entire government changed over. So it's designed to go slow, but the drawback is it's difficult to
Wow.
adjust.
And certain parts of it should be slow, and I agree. But once you have appropriated the money, you've agreed that that's the design, you agreed that this is what we're gonna do, it shouldn't then take you 10 years to do it. This covered bridge is a classic, I mean, 10 years, $2 million, and the bridge still isn't across the river. I mean, good God.
You could have done that yourself, correct?
Oh,
Is that
there
a
is-
state, is that a local road that goes over?
Oh, it's town road, town-owned bridge.
So you've learned then that you could probably do it cheaper yourself.
Well, it wouldn't have been cheaper, because this is the bait, this is the carrot that they put out in front of you, because it wouldn't be cheaper. Because they ate 80% of it, we had 20. Then, one of the Heritage Foundations or whatever, because it's a covered bridge, come in, and they ate 16% of our 20. So we've only got a 4% contribution in that $2 million. So no, the town couldn't have done it cheaper, by a long shot. I mean, we're not gonna have a lot of money in it. But I am convinced if this was a town-run project, that project would have been completed in 3 years.
There's a covered bridge, what did you call it?
It's some sort of a commission, it's some,
Oh, the local,
I can get you exactly who's on, but there's somebody else who's paying a great part of it as well, along with the state. So our final contribution is only 4%.
Oh, they put in 16%.
Correct.
Oh, not, I thought they ate up 16%.
No, they put in
Okay.
16%. So our final contribution in the cost of the bridge is only 4%, which is, from a town standpoint, fantastic. Other than the fact that it's taken them 10 years and the bridge isn't still across the river.
Yeah.
We couldn't have, I mean, it would have been a $500,000 project at minimum, I think, if we had done it ourselves. But with the state, it's now 10 years and $2 million, and it's still not across the river.
Is there gonna be any issue with the town beach with the state?
I don't.
Are we gonna have
well,
to,
I don't think so. I don't anticipate any. I mean,
Like what?
you know, I mean,
well,
there'll
because
be,
it's water.
yeah.
and they want-
I mean, we will certainly be governed by the shoreline protection and, you know, all wetlands. There's a bunch of wetlands down there. We'll be governed by all of that, but I don't anticipate anything that's not workable. I mean, you know, as far as the environmentalist groups, you know, should they choose to chime in?
and it's an existing beach, we're not changing
You know?
the status of the land,
So-
so we're just making it.
It carries over
close
to the next
private.
owners, right?
Yeah.
Okay. My last comment is does Ossipee have, I know Ossipee doesn't have, you don't have a Facebook page.
No.
I
The
understand that it
recreation
takes a lot of, you have to be on it. I mean, police departments have it, everything. And Ossepee's police
Our
department.
police
has-
department does have an active
And the
Facebook
Okay,
page.
I'm just trying to figure out, because
Yeah.
like I said before, I do get phone calls, like,
Yep.
you know, I have needles, you know, what do I
Yep.
do?
Yep.
Where did I find them? Where do I, you know, so I need
Yeah, I don't
to-
disagree with that. I think we can get something reduced to, you know, fairly simple, but in writing, get it posted out here, get it to you, get it on the website, on the police department state. Yes, we can do a better job advertising that. We need to do it. That's-
Because there's area churches, there's
Yep.
other opportunities to
Yep.
either put that out or put
Yep.
your policy out
Yep.
to make sure people know.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you.
We'll work on that. If there's nothing else, I make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.